Great. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this interview with me. As you know, I plan on doing a series of interviews of how other people like us have managed to put their symptoms or diseases into remission through the principles of functional medicine. So I'd love to hear for you to introduce yourself to all the people watching and tell me what was your diagnosis and the symptoms that you were suffering from.
Great. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me to join you here and be interviewed. And yes, my name is Shay Klomp Beuters. I'm originally from the States, and I've been living in the Netherlands for the last 15 years. And I'm also a functional medicine health consultant, similar to Murray. My diagnosis was asthma. I got it later in life. I was working on cruise ships at the time, and I remember I was a cruise director, so I was doing announcements and constantly on the microphone and constantly talking and being social. And I started coughing, and I couldn't, at a certain point, I really couldn't do announcements or anything anymore because I was coughing consistently. And I remember standing in the Lido line with some of the passengers, and one of the passengers saying, "It sounds like you have asthma. Do you have asthma? Have you ever been diagnosed with asthma?" And I hadn't at that point, and I hadn't even crossed my mind. And then I was working with the ship doctor, and they actually said, "I think you're gonna have to be medically disembarked because, you know, we're giving you albuterol, but it's still not working." So then I was medically disembarked in Buenos Aires and flew back to the States, and went to a doctor there who said, "Yeah, you have asthma." So that it wasn't necessarily a long process, and it wasn't also, in my mind, it came upon all of a sudden. I suddenly immediately had asthma, right? And I was like, how does that happen? Like, normally this is something that you're born with. Like, how? And I remember asking the doctor, and I kind of got shrugged off, and he's like, "You have asthma, just take this. That's all you need to know." And in all fairness, I have the utmost respect for Western medicine. Very grateful for it, in fact. And they have 10 minutes, you know, that is their protocol. It's kind of in and out, and they're dealing with a lot of people. So from there, I just started taking the inhaler, and I started noticing like the white kind of I don't know, the white candida type stuff that I was getting in my mouth and my tongue, and that was starting to change things, right? That was starting to change things in my body. And I think it's from there that things started to spiral in a different way, where I struggled to get pregnant. And I think that's really where I started to, my health journey really took me, and really propelled me to move forward and dig deeper and research and figure out what was happening, because I really wanted a baby. And we had gone the infertility route, and we had gone the medicinal route in that respect, in trying to get pregnant, and nothing was working. So I was doing IUIs and IVFs, and at this time, you know, I think my health was deteriorating. Oh, excuse me, I'm gonna take a drink of water. Okay, I think it's better. But my health was deteriorating, and I had a stressful job. So a lot of different factors, right? It's never just one factor. It's a lot of different things that are combining. And I finally got fed up with it. And, you know, I was, with the infertility, I was pumping myself so full of hormones that my eyebrows turned orange, I gained weight, I had acne. And I think at a certain point, I was like, I need to take a time out and just ground myself and kind of figure out what's happening. And I had done some research and found out that gluten and sugar, processed sugar, which I grew up on the standard American diet, can cause so much inflammation in the body that the last thing the body's going to do is conceive, you know, think that it's a place to bring a new life in. So I thought, okay, this resonates. Why don't I just take a month? And I remember it was March 1st, 2011. Let's just take a month, and I'm going to remove all gluten, remove all processed sugars. And I really decided that January, and it took me about 2 months to figure out at that time, because it wasn't so common, what had sugar, what had what was gluten? Where was it? Where did I find it? What was I going to do if I took those things out? And how was I going to manage? And it was a huge learning process, really valuable one. And my husband always cooked. I never cooked. So that also changed. I had to really take charge of my own health, right, and well-being. But it was huge. And within 3 days, I really noticed drastic changes. And that, my digestion for the first time was regular. I didn't realize that it was not normal to, go every 3 days, have a bowel movement every 3 days. And not be bloated, and just a lot of different things that I didn't realize. The brain fog that I was living in, that I had no idea that was lifted, the energy that I gained, and within 3 weeks I'd started to lose weight. My eyebrows turned back to the regular color, thankfully. Just a lot of different things.
Right. So you mentioned as well that you, at the time, it felt like this asthma diagnosis came from nowhere, but we know that these symptoms have been growing or developing for quite a period of time before that. Can you think of any symptoms that you had been experiencing prior to that, in the many years prior to that, that could have been indications that there was an imbalance in your body?
Yeah, I think after studying functional medicine and really kind of looking back at my own health journey, I see a few triggers. One is that my mom passed away when I was 20, and I think that was probably the biggest impetus to biggest life change, and traumatic one at that probably led to a cascade of symptoms, right? Because that was about 10 years prior to when I got my asthma. So, and they say, even though it feels like it appears out of nowhere, it's usually been brewing for a good 10 years minimum, 5, 10, 15 years. And, as far as other symptoms prior to, it's probably, when we're young, our hormones are able to cover up a lot of things and give us a lot of energy that we wouldn't normally have in a normal situation. So it's masking a lot of this stuff. And I looking back, I think that's probably what it was. I do remember a period after my mom passed away that I probably went into a bit of a depression. Okay. Was never diagnosed. It's just more, again, upon reflection, which again makes sense, right? I lost my mom. I graduated from university. I really was on my own and trying to navigate a lot of different things. And but I remember I gained weight at that time. I was probably the heaviest I'd ever been. I didn't know how to eat. I was working for Nike, and I remember going to a dietitian because I was like, I really don't cook or know how to, support myself. And she told me to eat Smart Start, which is like a cereal that at the time was supposed to be healthy. But, now when we look at it and look at the ingredients, there's nothing healthy in it. So, yeah, I think it was trying to navigate that, but
you didn't experience any digestive issues or fatigue or skin or allergies, hay fever, that kind of thing?
No, I didn't have any allergies. I would say probably skin. I was probably had acne and digestive. Yeah, I honestly, I don't think I ever knew that you were supposed to go on a daily basis till it started happening, right? Okay. So yeah, I think there was these things that were happening, but at the time when I had no idea that was supposed to be normal. So again, it's more upon reflection.
Yeah.
I think upon reflection as well, I probably had some hormonal imbalances happening, maybe some thyroid issues, maybe even because I was on the standard American diet. I thought, making a box of brownies was, making something homemade.
So definitely nutrient deficiencies, right?
Very nutrient deficient. Mac and cheese was my soul food. So I think there was a lot of things happening. I think maybe possibly pre-diabetic even at one point, so okay. I think there was probably a lot of things happening, but I, again, just didn't know how to navigate it. And I was really, really on my own. So it was more survival than thinking, oh, I don't really feel good. What do I need to do? It was more just trying to get through the day and manage. So, yeah.
So, I know a lot of people when they get some sort of diagnosis or they have symptoms as well, or they think about their genetics, right? So how much of your symptoms do you think can you attribute to genes, or do you feel is attributable to genes, and we know that genes are, you know, in functional medicine, that our genes are not our destiny. So, but I mean, does it lie in your family, any form of these kinds of inflammatory or immune dysregulation?
I think yes and no. I mean, my mom passed away from cancer at a young age, right? So
Okay.
when she had her gallbladder removed about, I think 8 to 10 years prior. So yeah, I mean, looking back, I think, yeah, it's easier to puzzle piece what's happening. I mean, there was definitely some cancer in our family, and that's probably the biggest one, a little bit of heart disease. So yeah, I mean, there's probably a bit of genetics at play as well. But again, I do feel that's also very empowering, because as you said, you know, we know genetics kind of load the gun, but it's our environment that's pulling the trigger. So yes, I think I was probably pulling the trigger on multiple levels and not realizing it. But the amazing thing is, like I said, when I started to change my diet and make these lifestyle changes, the quickness to which my body started to be like, thank you, oh my gosh, this is what I've been waiting for, was really amazing. So I mean, those symptoms that went away, you know, and that being said, I mean, from that point on, I was gluten-free, essentially sugar-free, and then I went dairy-free as well. And that all helped, but I still was struggling with the asthma. Like, I was still on my inhaler, not every day, but when I would get a cold, it would sink in. And I don't know if you ever experienced this with your asthma, but it would sink in and it would last for a good 2 months. And that would happen about 3 times out of the year. So if you think 2 months, 3 times out of the year, that's like 6 months. That's like half a year where I was really feeling poorly and not functionally optimally. And that really happened after I had my son. And so I was really struggling.
Which is another big life-changing event. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Yeah. And I think at that point I was really struggling, because I thought, wow, I really felt broken at a certain point. I really felt like, oh my gosh, I've worked so hard to bring this little boy into my life, and I don't feel good. Like, I don't have the energy to, and again, I was still eating healthy, but there was still something missing. And I think that's where functional medicine came in and really put that last piece of the puzzle into place, because I was, within 2 months of starting SAFM, I really put my asthma in remission. You know, I off inhalers, did not get sick for over a year and a half, which was incredible.
Yeah.
And that was with traveling, because whenever I would travel, I would get sick, you know, and I traveled a few times and I didn't get sick, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. I went through some stressful events and didn't get sick, and I thought, this is incredible. And I think, you know, learning, like I said, like mapping out my own unique health history and learning where I was deficient, like nutrient deficiencies, inflammation. And, you know, I have friends that have asthma and they're like, oh, tell me what you did. And I'm like, it's just not that simple, because we're all unique. Like, what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you. There's going to be some basics, right? We know we want to reduce the mucus. We want to reduce the, some of those things, like the nasal, things like that. But from there onwards, the nutrients I might be deficient in might be different for you or somebody else. So it's, I was really doing that and bringing in some added supplements and natural supplements that are going to support, that are going to be anti-inflammatory, that are going to help with the histamines, you know. That was a game changer. Honestly, it's been a total game changer.
So you also mentioned that you were on quite a cocktail, it sounds like, of medication to manage your asthma. I mean, let's just go back a little bit, because I know most people that get diagnosed with asthma, they go to their doctor and they get this cocktail of steroid medication, right? So was that the end of your conversation with the doctor? Was it, there's nothing you can do with your asthma? Was that kind of the message that you were getting?
Yeah, it was this was it.
Okay, you'll just be so you would have to be you would have had to be permanently on steroid medication and inhalers to manage your asthma.
Yep.
Okay, right.
Yep.
So now that you've put your symptoms into remission, what would you tell somebody who is suffering from something similar as you were and like I was, would be sort of the big hitters or the things that they need to be thinking of in changing in their lifestyle or in their diet that could really move the needle for them and help them get off their medication?
Yeah, again, I would love to be able to say that it's A, B, C, D, but I think it's really unique to the individual. Yeah, there's probably some basics. I mean, dietary needs is going to be a big one, and foods that are inflammatory, sugar, right? Like really assessing your diet and really seeing what you bring in. Any sort of packaged food is going to be processed, right? So right there, that's a big one. And if anyone's like me, again, no judgment whatsoever, because I was like the queen of like teriyaki sauce and all these different things that I thought, oh, I'm eating healthy. You know, little did I know how unhealthy they were. So I think you know, dairy is a big one, right? Like we know that dairy can be inflammatory, especially if you're struggling with any sort of asthma, nasal, sinuses.
Yeah.
So that's a great place to start, is to give yourself a trial, removing dairy for at least 4 weeks, right? So we know that the antibodies takes about 4 weeks for them to die off. So you can really see what that what the effect that has, and keeping in mind that it can be anywhere from, you know, 1 to 3 days. So you can eat dairy on, you know, on Monday and Wednesday feel an effect, and it's hard to piece that together. So it's really good to make sure that you give yourself the time to do that, prepare, really see, because there's a lot of times, I know I have this with clients and they're like, I'm gonna go dairy free, and then you know, halfway in they're like, oh my gosh, I had crackers and they had whey powder and I didn't put that together with dairy. So really understanding what that includes, right? So I think that's a big one, is prepping yourself, doing the education, looking through what you have in your pantry, in your in your grocery store items, essentially, so you can really be smart with that. And the beauty of it is nowadays, like, it's so vegan and dairy-free things are much easier to access. So that's a lot easier. And then, you know, honestly, I think that's where I would start. And from there, you know, sometimes that's all people need, depending on how severe it is, right? That could be it. And if not, then I think it's probably connecting with a health professional that you trust, that you feel like can help move your health forward. And I think that's the beauty of functional medicine, because it's really focusing on the education and the biochemistry of what's happening in your unique body. It's really kind of a personalized, I don't know if I want to say medicine, but you know, like it's a personalized plan that's unique to your body. And I think that's really where medicine in general, I think, is going. And I think functional medicine is kind of the bridge between conventional medicine, because it's all scientifically based. And it's really focusing on nutrition and lifestyle changes, and maybe some targeted supplements. And there's also functional nutrition tests that you can do, as far as seeing if there's some other foods that might be triggering a response, you know, so that you can really, it makes a sustainable lifestyle plan for you going forward. And the beauty of it is the return on investment is huge, because it's, oh my God, it's a freedom. Like, I really felt broken, and now I trust my body again, which I never thought I would have that trust in my body again. So there's a lot to be said for it. Yeah. Sorry, that was kind of long-winded, but.
No, that's great. No, I thank you very much. I think that's a very encouraging story for people to hear, especially people who have been suffering for many, many years with the debilitating effects of asthma. I mean, I remember nights where I could not sleep lying down because I couldn't breathe. So, and have managed to throw my medication away now. So I don't know where your meds are, if you keep them as backup just psychologically, because you know how bad it can be when you're unable to breathe. But
I will say, like, I remember I went and had I didn't dare to say it was in remission until I actually went and had a lung function test. I do it yearly. And I went and had that, and then it showed that there was no signs of asthma. And I remember going in to my doctor, and she's like, "What did you do?" She like gave me a high five, and she's like, "What did you do?" Like, I've never there's no signs of asthma. And I thought, wow. And she's like, "You can keep your medication, but this is incredible." So
Yeah.
yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Do you have any closing comments for people that are listening with regards to healing with functional medicine or putting their symptoms into remission?
No, I mean, I think the goal is to bring your body back into optimal wellness and vitality, and whatever that is for you. So for me, it was putting my asthma in remission. That might be different for other people. So, you know, just to keep your expectations in line, right? Like, and it's really ideally moving that needle to bring you to a place where you feel good, because we are all meant to feel good. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm getting old, that just happens." And honestly, I don't believe that anymore. I think there's a choice. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Murray. Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.